Whew. Hello again, Major League Fantasy Sports 3 owners. We are roughly 48 hours away from our draft on Thursday night at 9 o'clock Eastern Time. Before, I wanted to get this video out to you guys, at least a couple of days before the draft, to throw some numbers at you in case you guys have not broken them down the way I have. I mean, I've literally beat these things to death in regards to who contributes what, how heavily weighted one section of guys are in regards to hitters, pitchers, relief pitchers, in regards to closers and middle relief guys. I wanted to break those numbers down for you in a video and give you some examples so you know how to really truly value your entire team and how to really approach drafting them accordingly. So we'll go ahead and get started. The four key areas are going to be your everyday hitters, starting pitching, closers, and middle relief guys. Based on our scoring model, and if you guys have not looked over the scoring model, there's a positive negative effect to every single player, so you very easily could have a day where you score a good amount of points and the next day you have a negative, which is a good thing because everything has to average itself out, and we need to weight who has the best team overall. So we need to make sure if you have a bad game, well, you're scored that way if you had a bad game. But just to get to the basics, and I'll explain this to you as we go. If you go to the Players tab and you look at the statistics and how they were scored based on 2012 statistics, you're going to see that the best hitter, and you want to look at average per game and not necessarily the total, because if you look at total, it shows Miguel Cabrera, and I think Braun is just after him, and then right after him is Mike Trout. Now, Mike Trout actually had a better average. He missed a few weeks during the season, so at the beginning of the year, he averaged 4.7 points per game. Now, obviously, we need to figure out, okay, 4.7 points per game. How many games a week are the guys playing on average? Now, we'll base this average on the 162-game schedule, and this is the only way that we'd really be able to get a good, solid number, because we don't know if he's going to play 150 or 162 games or 152 or whatever. So we'll go based on 25-week season and a full 162-game schedule. If you average 4.7 points per game, and every guy on this list that I'm going to tell you at each position is going to be the best player based on the average at each one of those four key areas. So Trout averaged 4.7 points per game throughout the season. Over a 162-game season, 25 weeks, that's 6.48 games per week. So you need to take that 4.7 points, times it by 6.48 to come out with his average. Now, Mike Trout averaged 30.45 points per week throughout the entire season. So that's going to be your top-tier guy. It's going to get you 30.45 a week, 4.45 points a week. Miguel Cabrera was just behind him. I think it was like 4.4 or 4.5, something like that, and what he averaged per game, so he's just behind him. I think it came out to like 28 or 28.5 points a week, something like that. That's really important to know. Obviously, you want to have a good idea, of how this will break down, so you know how to value the players correctly. Now, your top-tier starter, if you go to pitching and you do the same thing, you look at who averages what, well, it's going to be a little bit different in how you have to figure out exactly what these guys are averaging per week. Now, starting pitching, we'll start with that. Justin Verlander was the best starting pitcher based on per appearance average, which was 19.6 per appearance. That's how many points that he averaged per appearance. Now, he only made 33 starts last year, which a couple of years ago he made 35, and there's other starters last year that made 34 appearances. But based on his average, we have to go on his appearances, and based on 25 weeks. So 33 appearances over a 25-week period means that he made 1.32 starts a week. So he made 1 1/3 starts roughly every single week. You take that number, 1 1/3, you times it by 19.6, what you come out with is almost 26 points. It's 25.87. Now, you may have people that there's going to be different schools of thought in regards to, what's more important on an average basis, or who's more important to a real team, an everyday player or a starting pitcher. There's different schools of thought in each side of the coin. Even though his average was a little bit lower, you need to get that out of your head, because the amount of starts that we can make on a weekly basis, the number of 12 starts, the volume of starters that you're going to have on your team and all that stuff is going to make that a moot point. I mean, it's essentially going to be a wash. So your top of the line starting pitching, your top of the line hitters are essentially the same. So, putting a value over a hitter in regards to a starting pitcher is totally going to be based on the individual and how you want to construct and build your team. Okay, and the idea, again, is to build a real Major League Baseball team. So there's going to be positive, negative correlation and scoring adjustments and these kinds of things. That's a good place to start. So obviously the first, I would say 10 to 12 rounds, you probably want to be focused on, just hitting and starting pitching, and wait a little later to get your middle relief guys and maybe some of your speculative picks. Now, the next two areas we're going to discuss are going to be closers and middle relief guys. Now, understanding the closer situation, understanding the middle relief situation is a little more complex, a little more complicated. Now, your best closer in our format last year was Craig Kimbrell. Just behind him was Aroldis Chapman. Now, Kimbrell averaged 6.6 points per game per appearance. Okay, he made 63 appearances last year. Divided by 25 gives you 2.52 appearances per week. You times that 6.6 number, what he averaged per game, times his amount of appearances per week throughout a whole year, and you come up with 16.6 points per week for your best closer. The number one closer in the business is going to get you right about, those amount of points. Maybe plus or minus less than 2%, from a year-to-year basis. That's good to know. Now, the other thing you need to understand in regards to that is that there's 30 Major League Baseball teams, and there's only there's 16 teams in our league. So not everybody is going to be able to carry more than one closer on their team, and some people might not have any at all. You may miss out on actually getting a closer, because maybe some guy decided to pop for one early, and decided he wanted to go with 3 closers, as opposed to going to middle relief guys. Well, that's going to work both directions. It doesn't necessarily benefit you all that much just to go heavy on closers and not go after any middle relief guys. In certain situations, maybe it does, but by and large, it's going to average itself out. So you've got 16.6 points per week, your best closer. Now, in our format as well, Jason Grilli had a fantastic year last year. Matter of fact, I think he's closing this year for Pittsburgh, but he was the setup guy for Hanrahan. So he averaged 4 points per appearance for him. It was the top average for middle relief guys. He made 64 appearances last year for an average of 25 weeks. 64 divided by 25 is 2.56 points per appearance. You times that by 4 points per appearance times the amount of appearances he made, you come out with almost 10 and a quarter points. It's 10.24. Now, how this is going to average itself out is very simple. Like I said before, most teams are not going to be able to carry more than 1 or 2 closers on their team, and some may not have any. Well, there's going to be a larger volume of middle relievers available, and they do carry a good amount of value on real Major League Baseball teams, so we want to make sure that these guys have a very similar value in our system. So if you've got, this would be my ideal situation for my pitching staff, okay? My ideal scenario for my pitching staff is I'm going to carry 7 starting pitchers. I'm going to try to get 2 closers if I can. I may just go with 1, okay? But I'm going to try to get 2, and then I'm going to have 4 middle relief guys. Okay? If I have 2 closers and they're all equal, and I get 16.6 points a week out of both of these closers every week, which it's not going to happen, but for example purposes, this will help you understand. I'm getting 32 and a half points per week for my 2 closers, and then my 4 middle relief guys are going to get me roughly 41 points a week. So you see how the volume of the amount of middle relief guys that you can carry is going to balance that out, but you have to give a little bit of a higher weighting to the closers, because not every single middle relief guy has the stones really to be a closer, and it does take a special kind of person, which is also the reason why you don't want to go too crazy with drafting closers as well, because they are the most difficult position to rank, and they definitely change on a year-to-year basis. It's a very small percentage of your closers out there every single year. They're putting up great numbers, and I think you guys probably already all know that. But adding the middle relief to the formula in the system gives us a lot more depth. It really makes you construct a real deal type of baseball team. A guy like Chris Medlin would have been gold on your team, just like he was for Atlanta. He was amazing. He made a good amount of starts. He also pitched middle relief. He closed a couple of games. It's going to add a lot of value to those type of guys, which have real value in real baseball. There's a couple of other numbers that I wanted to run run past you guys so you really get an understanding of the value of hitting as opposed to pitching. Now, for argument's sake, what we're going to do, you can make 12 starts per week. Okay, total of 12 a week. Every team can make 12 a week. You have to make a minimum of 50 innings to qualify, but you can make a total of 12 total starts. So I'm going to use the average. Let's say you got a team of Justin Verlanders, okay, which is not going to happen. We all know it's not going to happen. But for example purposes, this will help you really understand exactly how this is weighted. 12 starts per week times Justin Verlander's average of 25.87 points per week. It comes out to 310 points over a week, which we all know you're not going to get that for your pitching staff. Remember, it's just for example purposes. So if you've got that, if you have that set up, that's 310 points a week. Now, if you have the model I told you, like I'm going to try to get 2 closers and 4 middle relief guys if I can. If you got 2 closers, two Kimbrels on your team, and they average 16.6 points per week, that's gonna break down to 33.2 points per week. And then your 4 middle relief guys, it gives you an average of 10.24 points a week. That's going to get you almost 41 points a week. And then total for your pitching staff per week, if you add those 3 things up, your middle relief, your closers, and your starters, you're going to come up with 384.16 points a week from your pitching staff. Now, again, we all know that that's not going to happen. You're not going to have a team full of Justin Verlanders. But this is just it's a good tool for you guys to understand how this breaks down. And it's in regards to parity, in regards to the league and matchup play, it's going to be so important that you make the right choices throughout the season. It's going to put a really big emphasis on that. So you've got 384 points from your pitching staff a week, roughly. Now your hitters, if you got a team full of Mike Trouts, again, it's not going to happen, but if you do, you have 11. Excuse me. You're going to have 11 guys in your hitting lineup every single day. So you have to times that. 11 hitters times times his average, which was 30.45, would give you 334 points a week from your from your hitters. So you've got 334 points from your hitters, and then 384 points from your pitching. So, the average guy said, well, you're putting too much emphasis on pitching. There's way too much emphasis on pitching. I had a guy the other day actually challenged me, texted me and said that, I can't remember who it was, but they texted me and said something about the pitchers are undervalued. That's not the case. The values are even across the board. And you got to remember the examples I gave you here were based on if every guy on your team was Mike Trout and every guy was Justin Verlander. So it's weighted accordingly. There is really no one direction that you're going to be able to go to really get like a hold or take advantage of other people, because they're going to have other options to supplement maybe what they're missing based on the depth and the way the league is scored. So your best approach in this league is going to be to take a balanced approach, set up a real baseball team. I don't know one baseball team out there that goes after drafting 4 closers. It usually, and if you do, you're Ben Cherington, the idiot from the Red Sox, that thinks every season he's going to trade for a closer, which is the dumbest thing on the planet. So what you want to do is like I said, I would say the first 12 rounds, what I'm going to be focusing on, since I understand this model like you wouldn't believe, what I'm going to focus on is getting a good blend. I'm going to probably go after, in those first 12 rounds, I would say probably 9 or so position players, maybe 8, and then 3 or 4 starting pitchers. That's going to be my approach. And then after I get to that break point, I'm going to start adding supplemental guys, middle relief guys, maybe a closer, start adding in some speculative picks, that kind of thing. So that's pretty much all I wanted to run over with you guys. I wanted to give you some specific numbers to chew on. If you want to go do your own figures and your own numbers, just go to the Players tab and look at the 2012 statistics to use that, as a measuring stick, because it has all of the statistics that we count on a positive, negative basis included, and the projections will not have every single one of them. It'll be missing, a good handful of the categories that we scored. So any questions in the meantime, you know how to get in touch with me. You have my phone number. Email me, text me, whatever, and I'll explain it to you in a different way if that's needed. But anyway, good luck to all of you guys on Thursday night. Like I said, we're roughly 48 hours or 49 hours away from drafting. I hope everybody enjoys playing this year, and we'll see you in a couple of days.